Microphone once again. Anyway, this probably shouldn't do this room because I'm really not in the mood. People are just so irritating. Um, but who knows? So maybe I'll delete this and we'll actually see how it works out. 'Cause I'm not terribly inspired and feel like just ragging on human beings in general, mostly. Uh, Impossible to communicate with. Monstrously horrid, disgusting creatures, most of them. Um, even even the ones you know. Sometimes, well, yeah, what is that? I could, yeah, I don't know. There literally is. Uh, I don't know. This you always end up disappointed somehow. I think probably mostly most cases. Can't really think of a case where it hasn't been true to some extent. Um, so anyway, um, so yeah, I'm just a little distracted. Stupid things. Somebody asks for your, mechanical advice about something, and you go to all this trouble to try to explain it, and they just keep saying how they can't do something, and you're just like, whether you can do it or not, this is what has to be done. I'm just telling you what has to be done. Now, you want to say you can't do it, okay? But, they haven't even tried, and they say they can't do it. And that part just really bugs the fuck out of me. It's just like, why are you wasting my time then? I mean, if you're not even willing to go over and look at the thing, you know, and touch it with your finger, um, don't ask me for advice. Fuck you. Anyway, yeah, distracting. So yeah, so my brain is distracted because I'm just so sick of this shit. Uh, just sick of it. Yeah, sick of people. Sick of having to endure their presence on my planet. So anyway, comments haven't been too brilliant, so I don't know if there's anything much to do anything with. I don't think there's anything really. There was something on the vlogger domes. Uh, so I guess I could go look at that, but I'll just check the comments on the channel first, just to see if there's anything. I thought this would get me to the comments, but no, it didn't work. I have to go to my creator studio. Oh, fascinating. All right, dude, you're a friggin' idiot. No, this is in all caps from Harry Larry. Cut your hair, Harry Larry. So I'll just acknowledge his and go to church. No, I don't think I'll do that. A field is by definition particle free. I don't know how exactly that makes any sense. A field of daisies doesn't have daisies in it. You live in a field, not on a BB. I don't know what that means. Earth is flat. Wake up. I don't think you believe that, but whatever. Fuck off. Let's see. Nathan Neiman. I'm not supporting Ken's ideas about magnetism or force, motion, inertia, acceleration, space, or counter space. Period. In my opinion, he is confused. So far, you're not saying anything. However, I disagree with you about the necessity of the ether, especially considering the electromagnetic phenomenon. Well, again, how does electromagnetic phenomena do anything? How do you have to, it's called physics for a reason, is that your explanation of things are supposed to have some kind of physics in them, some sort of physical thing. I mean, frankly, I'd rather you said unicorns done it than say something like considering the electromagnetic phenomena. That doesn't explain anything. There's no physics in that, as just a phrase. So you think the electromagnetic phenomena isn't made of a something. You think it's a magical nothing. And you think physics should talk about all the magical nothings. All right, anyway, moving on. Oh, we typed a whole bunch of crap here. If you don't like the word ether, call it Dirac's Queen Ocean. Yeah. Quantum foam. No, I'm not doing that. Or anything you like. No, I'm not going to bother with any of that crap because I don't need to. It's a retarded concept in the sense that we know that the only thing the ether is good for, if you were to have one, is to explain the concept of the thing that happens, gravity. So you don't have to do this silly bent space crap. And you know that that's a force that there's obviously a lot of energy involved in movement, and the ether doesn't do that. So a static dead ether is useless, and an active ether is essentially a particle field, retard. The main reason the ether is necessary is because the space vacuum stores magnetic and electric energy. Well, what the fuck is energy, retard? I mean, to say energy is nothing is again just to say physics isn't about describing something, it's about describing nothing. So it's not physics, it's metaphysics, it's fucking religion. Hence, something having a material structure is necessary in order to store the energy. Well, something having a material structure, there you go. Now you're getting somewhere. But there's no evidence that the energy is stored in the field. I mean, there's no evidence that it's stored there. It's in the field. It's not stored there. The field pushes things together. It's just so fucking obvious. A capacitor. Now he's going to say something just totally retarded. Do not store charges. Well, see, you got the whole fucking thing backwards. Because, man, that is just exactly what they do. It's like a battery. They get heavier. You fill up a capacitor, it gets heavier, shithead. What do you think it's getting heavier for? So a charged capacitor doesn't have more electrons than a discharged one. Well, that's where you're wrong, because it has more charge. It has more electrons. Capacitors store electric energy in the dielectric medium. Again, says you. There's no dielectric medium. So again, who cares what you're saying here? You've got no evidence for any of this shit. Show me the experiment that demonstrates the dielectric medium, whatever, filling up. Vacuum is a dielectric medium. Well, again, that's what you're saying. To me, the word vacuum means nothing. So you're saying the vacuum isn't a vacuum. You're just saying it's all the way reduced to a dielectric medium or something. There's a substructure. So I'm arguing there's a simple concept of a simple particle that has very few properties. I mean, it moves the speed of light. It goes from point A to point B in a dead straight line. And the only characteristic it can really have is a polarization, that is a shape. So it's a frisbee moving at static speed that doesn't do anything. And the only interesting character is that, yes, you can throw the frisbee this way, or you can throw the frisbee this way, and you can have frisbees at a frequency. So there, I've given you a simple mechanical system that explains gravity, magnetism, time dilation, inertia, the strong and weak forces, the whole thing. And you're saying I need to instead go with some irrational superstructure of dielectric medium, whatever that would be, this magical dielectric medium structure that somehow makes electricity. No, I don't. Why would I do that? Why would I go from simple, rational, logical answer to mushy, vaporous, vacuous, nothing explanation? That would be stupid. So far, I don't see where you're disagreeing with Ken here. The quantum of energy is an evidence of the particulated nature of structure. Gee, isn't that a great sentence? I just love that. That's so scientific and explanatory. The quantum of energy is an evidence of the particulated nature of the structure. What structure? You haven't even explained what the structure is. It's a vacuum full of dielectric medium, and the dielectric medium is in little pieces. Now you're saying, okay, fine, I guess. Quantum electrodynamics is a useful mathematical model. Well, it's not useful if you get it wrong. So if you believe in things like Huygens, which are now part of that quantum electrodynamics, that's just a lie. And then things like Heisenberg is just made up shit, really. There's no evidence that we can't know these things. There's only evidence that we don't have rulers to measure photons with. But anyway, but fails because cannot explain what is magnetism. Well, you didn't explain what is magnetism, and I did explain what is magnetism. So you're just not paying any attention. Pretty much. All right. Let's see. I concur with the diabolical discourse of discombobulation. Wink, wink. My attempt at intelligent comment. Well, it was a bad attempt, so I'm going to delete it because I'm really not in the mood for jokesters. I'm quite sick of them, actually. Vertically infinite plane versus inverse square thing. Very interesting point to consider. Yeah, well, the whole reason why force spreads is kind of obvious. And the fact that it spreads is the only reason why this whole distance thing becomes relevant, is because the force spreads. And so obviously the further away you go, the force spread around you and you missed it. It'll be interesting to see the development of a conceptually complete model of neutrons and quarks. Well, like I said, I don't know if I'm going to really mess with a quark explicitly. I just like the idea of that matter, the difference between matter and field energy is that matter is quanta that have been compressed and are stuck to each other. Like you said, three main quarks of interest. I'm thinking gluons don't really exist, not required, just mathematical placeholders. Well, I obviously don't think any of them theoretically exist in the sense that what they break down into is quanta, and they're just bits moving the speed of light. And the only thing being exchanged in the universe is polarization. The only thing that makes me different than the field energy is the fact that my energy is structured in polarized packets. Frisbees all going the same way, kind of thing. Where I'm thinking the three significant quark interactions are most likely part of the resonation of highly segregated quanta directions. Well, that just doesn't do much for me. And polarity exchanges in tightly looped combinations with continuous interactions from external quanta. Well, it's all continuous for certain. So the momentum of the forces is permanent, straight, never stops. There is no real changing of momentum. You're just changing who's wearing the suit. So theoretically, who's wearing the polarization? Something like that anyway. Looking forward to see more. Okay, well, good enough. All right, so we will go to the other video, I think. Yeah, we will do that. There's nothing in the new comments, right? No. All right, so we'll go to the Vlogger Dome video that some asshole left a comment. Oh, to the old asshole, you know, the asshole from the other that used to make comments before I finally said, if you can't make a civil comment, go fuck yourself. Let's see. Physics, number 10, yes. New tab, and here we go. I got to turn it off before all that noise from the intro. Okay. Do I have the sound on? Let's see if the sound's on here. It's very quiet. Okay, enough of that. All right, so logical imperialist, this liar, cunt bastard. All right, the website links to this video explaining all the basics of Gary Mosier's theory of modern physics. Now, somebody's posting.
Could be a new post.
They always do that. They post something when I'm making a video.
And such.
Let's see. Bendy Slut. Oh, okay. Well, we won't bother with that. So we'll just block his IP later. So enjoy yourself for now, and I'll get to you later, fuckface, fuckhead, or anyway. That's unfortunate. So yeah, sorry. I got to pay more attention to the little trolls. So let's see. Official Info Global. So at least we know his name. So he is a little weaselly cunt with no dick. And so when I win a Nobel Prize, please, everybody who lives next door to this fucker will find out who he is. You know, insult him and piss on him, shame him until he commits suicide, which is the only proper thing for such trolls to do. I mean, it's just so rude. You go into somebody else's room and mute them. I mean, what the fuck? Nobody should find that a tolerable, whatever that is. Was that like some sort of um, juvenile Halloween kind of thing? Like you're out on mischief night and you're getting a little boner because you're gonna, smash somebody's pumpkin. Ugh, you're pathetic. Pathetic. Your life is pathetic. Your existence is pathetic. Obviously, your parents were pathetic losers who should also be humiliated for giving birth to such a piece of shit as you. I mean, it's just very sad all the way around. All right, Gary Mosier made much more stuff in the meantime since 2015, which is not featured in this video. Yes, but again, there was no point made that it was complete. It was just an argument for this idea of a particle gravity. The idea of particle gravity hasn't changed any. The argument that this particle thing creates a force that is also, I mean, the magnetic part hasn't changed any in the sense that it's created by polarization. And the only thing that I have realized is that I was trying to create a gravitational model of electrons and protons in the sense that they would have internal orbits, and that was my bad, because they don't need to have orbits to create a force balance. You can have like a spring where something just keeps bouncing off the field energy, so it just can't get loose because it just keeps bouncing off the stuff coming in from the outside. Anyway, which is not featured in the video, not even in basic terms. Well, again, all the basic terms are exactly the same. The arguments for inertia are the same. The argument that acceleration is the absorption of energy and that there's no such thing as relative velocity. There's just absolute velocity. So he invented a lot of shit afterwards. Well, the whole thing I invented in a sense. So when I invent it doesn't, again, if the channel was called Finished Science, then you might have an argument. But it's called Draft Science, you retard. Which he never knew he has to explain beforehand. Well, again, there's nothing I didn't know what I have to explain, and I clearly have found that there were some elements of what I had argued that were made unfeasible because of some violation of some actual circumstance, and so then I had to modify them because of that violation. And sometimes the modifications came easy and sometimes they didn't. But clearly I didn't break any rules by saying, oh, we've got to come up with a better answer because this answer isn't complete and it doesn't work. But again, it had nothing to do with the overall theme, which is particle gravity. The video makes claims that today Gary would not make any more. Well, I'm just saying the claims that are minutiae. The basic claims are exactly the same claims, that there is a particle gravity, that there are fields of energy in the space around us, that photons are the same as gravitons, the same as magnetons, the same, and that all of those tons are the same exact thing. So none of that has changed, you liar. So Mosier changed his mind about shit and realized that some shit simply doesn't fly. Well, again, I realized that you don't need to make something orbit to make it contained, and that orbits create their own problems anyway on the quanta level. So yes, I dispensed with that idea. He replaced this shit in this video with different shit he made up later. I didn't replace anything in the video. I certainly think I will make another video summing up, but so what you're implying isn't even true. But yes, there's a better, more complete answer now. I have a better argument now. What I have on my website isn't accurate anymore, in the sense that there's stuff on there that I don't believe is correct. But again, it's the minutia, not the substance. So I claim constructivism on Gary's theories of modern physics. Well, again, if the channel was called something other than Draft Physics, this might make sense, but it really doesn't. He obviously makes shit up with no linkage or correspondence to reality. Well, again, the linkage is going to be obvious in the sense of it's the truth. Clearly anybody who's reasonable is going to see the linkage between magnetism and what the electrons are doing and what the protons are doing and the forces being created and how electricity travels and inertia and time dilation. Clearly all of those correspondences to reality fly in the face of your silly assertion. It's a silly assertion. You're just a liar. I mean, clearly there's huge linkages and correspondences. Where there isn't any linkage or correspondence is in the vortex called bent space. Exactly where does that come from? Everything's vortexing. It's sucking up a bunch of space and farting it out where. But simply what craps into the mind of Gary? Well, again, it obviously had to crap somewhere. Yes, it's crapped in my brain. So no Nobel Prize for Gary, in other words. And so this is one of your mindless and silly assertions that you make on the internet. You just go around and make silly assertions for which you have no evidence. And how does that make you a useful human being? I think that just makes you a noisemaker and a liar. And so again, you're just one of these people who should be demonstrated to be a useless cunt who should either stay in his bedroom and shut the fuck up, or dispose of himself properly for being a cunt and an asshole and a shit for brains and a useless lying piece of crap. So what is producing these arrows? This is Mayul CS, who is just such another cunt. So what is producing these arrows? Well, it's silly. It's what made the universe? Oh, yeah, I really don't know, asshole. I don't know where the something came from. That's right. There's no obvious creator. Apparently, there are just an infinite supply of them. Yes, just like there's an infinite supply of bent space, apparently, asshole. So why don't you ask these questions to physics in general if you're so worried about the source? Yes, they clearly exist, jackass. You want to sit there and argue with that. Oh, where does the energy come from? You mean if I took all of the planet Earth and I put it into a proper radioactive state that I could theoretically blow it all up into nuclear bits and it would create enough energy to essentially expand a 7 zillion parsec dead space in the universe with just the energy in the Earth alone? Where did that big supply of energy come from? Gee. I mean, really, you've never seen a nuclear bomb. You don't know that there's a bunch of energy in the universe. I really don't have to explain where it came from. It exists, jackass. And where does physics explain where it came from, you stupid cunt? Conventional physics. Oh, that's right, they don't. You stupid cunt. Anyway, all right. If they existed, that is, considering there is no evidence of that. Well, again, there's a ton of evidence supporting everything I have argued is consistent with most solid experimentation, and the only experimentation it's not consistent with is the most abstract, complicated, silly in terms of its interpretations and even descriptions. Once again, they will describe themselves capable of watching photons travel 58 feet, and they'll be able to pick exactly the same photon. Oh yes, we watched it all the way across there. We watched exactly where it went. And yeah, we're supposed to believe that's true when we know it's not true. So anyway, so liars, just liars. Internet's covered with them. Horrid, disgusting liars. Anyway, so I'll have to move on to the next whatever bit of stuff and see if anything else happens, or maybe I'll just call it an evening because I'm really in a shitty mood. Let's see. In Mendham, if you can't explain anti-gravity, then your theory is wrong. Well, I don't know exactly what the fuck is anti-gravity, retard. You have an anti-gravity gun you got in your Cracker Jack. A new galaxy type has been discovered that defeats your theory. Says you with no evidence. Look up starless cold gas galaxies. And how does that disprove my theory, idiot? I have actually argued that that's how galaxies begin. They don't begin with stars in them. They begin with gas in them. So that's all they're made out of, jackass. Well, I'm not. You're the one who's going to be blowing my ass, fucker. No, fuck you. All right. So yeah, just yeah. Trash commenters, of course. Human beings of no value, no integrity, no balls whatsoever. They're not men. They're not even boys. Even when I was a boy, I wouldn't do this kind of crap on the internet. If I was going to pick a fight with somebody, I was going to be honest about it and take my lumps. It wasn't going to be some little slimy troll talking shit from behind rocks. The world is just full of too many of these little anonymous cowards. People with no integrity. They stand for nothing. They believe in nothing. They're just little pieces of nihilist shit. We should declare them no better than an AIDS virus, and we should make every effort to eradicate them. from the gene pool. And the universe, the polarization field dynamic. They're bad polarization. Bad clump of bad polarization. Fundamentally broken machines. Can't play. Can't even, if there were Coke machines, they'd be, giving out, whatever. Campbell's tomato soup or something. You just can't do the game. Can't play the game that's required. So let's see what else is worthy of note. Like I said, I mean, it does get kind of, people have to really follow along to some extent to get what I'm saying here, but this polarization thing really was a key thing. This red-green thing, I know it looks like it's nothing, but the red-green making black and the, what do I do with my red-green page? It must be here somewhere. I gotta keep track of all this crap. Yeah, so, yeah, the red green making black and red black making, green black making red, just so key. So one's the electron, one's the proton, and that's the game right there. Is gravity. See, the key part of it is why it makes gravity is that the electrons are producing all this black polarization. The protons are producing all of this red polarization. And so when they're in matter of all kinds of, where there isn't any structured arrangement that maximizes those emissions, then the emissions are all mixed up. So it's a bunch of black and red mixed together coming out of regular matter. That's why it's not magnetic. That's why you can't put a compass needle next to it and watch it move. It's because it's sending out incoherent. It's sending it out back randomized and in chaos. But the trick is half of it now. So it was converted from green. Now green moved both electrons and protons. Green affected both electrons and protons. But now the field energy has been converted into black and red, and black only affects the electrons and the red only affects the protons. So half the force has been negated. So half of that green energy, because you changed its polarization, now that green energy, because it's wearing the black or the red shirt, is completely ineffective half the time. So it has half the capacity to have meaningful interactions, which means that's the shadow force. So when two bodies are coming together, they're exchanging between them a bunch of blacks and reds, and the blacks and reds don't have any ability to push apart because they're only half as strong. Only half the time does a black hit a proton, and only half the time does a red hit an electron. So their effectiveness is cut in half, so there's half the force between them, so the gravity smashes them together. Yeah, it gives depth to the shadow. It makes the shadow really work now. So it explains gravity. Clearly it does magnetism easy, and it does the proton and the electron in the nuclear forces. So all I have to do now is explain how the neutron is mitigating and preventing, I think, I'm pretty sure, the electron from falling into the proton, and also preventing the protons from separating. So it's locking protons into each other when they don't want to be near each other, and it's creating a positive force that prevents electrons from actually falling into protons. So it's all there. Really quite brilliant. And And so far, nobody who matters is going to be saying those words, but it really is all quite brilliant. This, this sucks that I can't challenge. I don't get the opportunity to challenge somebody who's of the existing theocracy in physics. I mean, that Ken guy has gotten really useless. I mean, his last video, I started playing it, but you lose all will to live. I mean, he's doing this ancient Greek thing, like somehow the ancient Greeks, who basically couldn't figure out how not to shit in their drinking water, had all the answers. I mean, people who think that shit is just too stupid. I mean, really, they haven't even invented soap yet. Ugh. So it really does hurts the brain to contemplate why people do this stuff, why they fall in love with these silly, dopey ideas. So attached. Yes, another little fake person, Dr. Julian Brathenberg. Yes, I'm a geophysical scientist. I don't think so. And I do not understand your theory at all. Well, that's because you're stupid then. I don't know what to say. How hard did you try to understand it? You watch a half of a video or something? It's physics, jackass. So yeah, you have to listen to a little bit of it to get it. What is the qualifiable data? Again, the data is the same data Einstein used to develop relativity and bent space. What data did Einstein use for that, asshole? Yeah, the data is the existing evidence, retard. You could go through all of the electrodynamic laws. So you could use Maxwell's equations, completely consistent. All of Newton's, certainly. And then you could go with Gauss's law, and then you could go with Ohm's, and you could go with, let's see, who's the other guy? But I'm just saying it's consistent with all of those. Provides a quantized energy source to explain all of that. Let's see. Please do some calculations. Again, what calculation? I have done calculations. So in the first place, I just did them in the last video that you apparently didn't watch, where I talked about the R squared, and I talked about the R, and then I talked about the force having not degrading at all over distance when you have an infinite plane. Those are called equations, jackass. Those are the elements of equations, and relationships formulatic. You don't understand that 1 over R squared is a formula? Let's see, you claim, but you don't do. You haven't even written. Why would I write 56, what, I don't know, it's squared plus 2. Why would I do that? Yeah. Again, the argument being made is the evidence is consistent. You have to show how the evidence isn't consistent. I can't do that for you because it's not inconsistent. There's no formula, no proven formula that's inconsistent with what I'm saying. None. Now, you want to show me a formula that's inconsistent, you might have an argument, but you haven't done that. So what formula in physics do you think my theory isn't perfectly consistent with? Now, Huygens, it's not consistent with Huygens because there's no evidence of Huygens. There's no evidence that that's a principle, the thing they only use in one circumstance, the principle that only applies to one single circumstance in the entire universe. Yeah, no, my theory is not consistent with that babble. And my theory is not consistent with Heisenberg, but that's a win for me, I would argue, because that's absolute nonsense. Well, again, what math would you want me to do? You want me to redo 2 plus 2 for you? I'll redo it if you want me to. I'll show you the quanta of 2 plus the quanta of 2 equals 4. You want me to do that for you? I've quantized it, you idiot. Don't you understand what that means? That means I'm saying that the photon has a mass of 1. Okay, not the stupid Planck constant of 1 times 10 to the minus 19th. No, let's just make the photon a 1. Okay, so yes, my math will be a little bit different, but it's quantizable. Okay, 1 quanta is 1 quanta. You see, and they all are moving the same speed and they all have the same mass. And the only thing that's really different is the polarization they leave behind when they go someplace. They change their clothes and they leave behind a suit. And the suit becomes what we call a material thing with properties. Well, again, I don't have a burden of proof. Again, how did Einstein prove the existence of bent space? I don't understand. Show me the bent space formula, please. So go ahead, show me a formula that has the symbol for bent space in it. Because the only symbols in Einstein's formulas are distance, masses, radiuses, and angles. So there is no bent space in any of it, asshole. Yeah, you don't know shit. Again, you haven't shown me one formula that my quantized theory can't perfectly explain. So until you show me that formula, you show me a phenomenon. Like I said, it's perfectly consistent with all of Maxwell's equations. So that's the fundament of all electrodynamics. I mean, quantum electrodynamics, before it became silly, it was all about Maxwell. But you're claiming it all fits you. I don't know what that means. So you're, for somebody who's supposed to have some sort of high degrees in science, you don't talk very logically or rationally. I haven't just claimed it, I'm showing it. I'm explaining. In the last video I just made, I pointed out why electrons go to the outside of conductors. Okay? I explained why they do that. They do that because their charge isn't the same all the time. Okay? Their charge changes with their acceleration. So when you accelerate them, they don't like each other even more. And that's why they spread out. And you obviously can't spread out if you're heading towards the middle of the conductor, can you? No, you can't. Idiot. Well, I'm not Miles Mathis, so you can't even get that right. And so, yeah, throw your whatever, your Zionist rhetoric, your bigotry at somebody else, please. So, way to fail preposterously. Another trolly asshole with no argument. You're a loser, you're a loser, you're a loser who's done. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that Einstein accounts for the sun moving. Newton didn't. That's the difference between Einstein and Newton. The precession of Mercury is a consequence of the center of gravity of the sun precessing. That's what gave Einstein's math any meaning in terms of more accurately describing the precession of Mercury. The reason why Newton couldn't do it is because in Newton's math, the sun is rather fixed. So you can't calculate something based on its position. You have to calculate, the position of its outside. You have to calculate it based on the position of its inside. And so the center of gravity of something, especially something liquid like the sun, its center of gravity can go all kinds of places effectively without you noticing. You can derive Newton's formula from Einstein's. Well, again, how does Einstein's formula? How exactly is Einstein's formula can be derived and it can drive anything? Einstein creates a vortex of force, an energy source called bent space. At least Newton wasn't silly enough to do that. So exactly how do you explain the vortex in the center of every massive object that somehow in 3 dimensions is essentially a vacuum cleaner? Well, if it's a vacuum cleaner, it has to have an outlet somewhere. Where is the outlet, asshole? Bent space breaks basic conservation laws. That's why it's not put in regular physics. That's why they pretend the force isn't a regular force, is because then they'd have to account for the energy, and they don't have any way to account for it. I obviously am giving you a method to account for it quite easily. I'm making the obvious suggestion too. I mean, I've said this before, but the difference between push and pull is obvious to anybody with any kind of mechanical knowledge. Knows that it's a lot less complicated to push something than it is to pull something. And the fact that big brained physicists were too stupid to figure out that push is the obvious first choice, the default mechanism. It should have been the thing they tried to make work instead of going with some silly notion of pull, which is really nonsensical as a foundational or fundamental force. A pulling force as a fundamental force is idiotic. Everywhere, incessantly, mostly. Again, I mean, I'll make concessions for the 2 or 3 people who haven't thoroughly disappointed me yet, but, but who knows? Ugh, ugh, I just hate people. Hate them, hate them, hate them, hate them, hate them. So, I guess we'll call it quits since we're really not getting any rational action. So, yes, till the next time, and such, and so forth and whatnot. Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'll be in a better mood some other day, but I don't think it's going to be today. Tomorrow, probably be some. Who knows? I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen the next 2 nights. Anyway, all kinds of shit I got to do. So yes, good night. Thank you, and so forth and whatnot. Done.